there are a lot of misconceptions about bipolar, and people don't really understand, and I don't really talk about it, and I'm not sure which came first. Right? Am I not talking about it because I'm afraid people don't understand, or do people not understand because no one will talk about it?
Do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Eldon, and by the time you watch this, I'll be 30. And 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
What can you tell us about bipolar disorder?
There are a few different types. I have bipolar type 2, which is it has highs and lows, the same as bipolar type 1, but instead of full-blown mania, there's hypomania. So it's sort of kind of like less extreme, I guess. But yeah, so it's made up of periods of depression and periods of the sort of the high hypomania.
So when did you first notice signs of bipolar?
When I was 17, I noticed some lower periods, but it didn't really become an issue until I was in college. And it just started getting a lot worse. I got really depressed, and because of bipolar, it's so inconsistent. So I would just it would get really bad, and then it would go away, and get kind of bad, and then go away. And so I kind of just blamed myself, which that didn't really help at all. Just kind of made it worse. But it would go away, and so I would just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. I thought I had depression at the beginning, and I did have some depression, but that only told part of the story. But because of the nature of bipolar, when things were good, they were really good. And then when they were bad, they were really, really hard. And I think, one of the things that's good about, one of the things that I didn't feel worried about, I guess, with the hypomania is I just felt, I was confident, I was invincible, I was productive, I didn't need to sleep as much. I was just on top of the world. I was unstoppable. But then with the depression, you'd crash, and it would just kind of reset a lot of that progress that you felt like you were making. And so I never understood why until later.
What did the diagnosis change?
I think the diagnosis, it gave me a name for my demons. It gave me the validation that I needed, and that that I wasn't just. It wasn't just. I guess it wasn't all in my head, which is it's a mental illness, so I guess it is in your head, but it wasn't just something that I was imagining or something that wasn't there was an explanation for it. There was a reason that it was like this. And so I think that was one of the things that it helped me with, is gave me some clarity and some relief that I knew that I was not alone, and that it was something that, there was treatment and plans to try and sort of live with that thing, live with that, whatever it was. And then it was like, okay, now I know it's bipolar.
What's the worst part about having bipolar? Or what was the worst part at the beginning versus now?
I think early on, the worst part was the depression. I was suicidal for a lot of college, and on and off for many years after that. And the hard part about that is, there's a quote, the hardest part about having a mental illness is that people expect you to behave as if you don't. And I feel like I was just sort of putting on this front and this mask, and that I never felt genuinely happy enough or consistently enough. And so I think the suicidal thoughts and the depression kind of added up to just make life really, really difficult and challenging and kind of scary. And I was in survival mode for several years. I think now the worst part is that there are periods that I feel low, and I can't always. It's still hard to explain why or what changed. Honestly, the last year is the most stable I've ever been, and even still, there are periods where I feel like, I describe it, just something feels off. I don't feel, it's like something's not quite right. I don't feel that same level of stability or of happiness or of contentment that I sometimes feel, and there's just something doesn't feel quite right, and I don't always know how to kind of verbalize that.
What is the best part then versus now?
The best part? I think it's a combination of things. At the beginning, the best part was the hypomania. I felt, like I said, I was confident. I was unstoppable. I was invincible. And I was productive, and everything was exciting for those parts. And I never saw the mania or the hypomania as a bad thing. But the cost of it is that things would, the stability would end, or the elation would end, and then I would kind of crash. And so I understand the reason to try to avoid it. Um, but I think one of the things I like now um, is I like the way my brain works. I watched Harvey recently, and near the end, there's a character who, they're trying to fix uh, Elwood, and he said, someone says, well, if they do this treatment, he's going to come out. He's not going to be as kind and as loving and as sincere and genuine. He's just going to be a regular person. And she, his sister is like, oh, that's too great a cost. And I guess I kind of think about that as like it kind of begs the question, like, what is the cost of sanity? Like, is sort of the inconsistency and the unpredictability and the I like the highs and the lows. Like, what does it add? Because I think people just think, oh, it takes away, but I also think that there's benefits. I think of like I consider the highs and lows like the heartbeat of living, right? And it's better than flatlining. I think there's the variation keeps it interesting, I guess. I don't know, and I feel like I'm more creative, and it gives me something to pull from, whether I'm happy or sad, or whether it's high or low. There's something to kind of pull from and relate to and think about, and I think it gives me some perspective that is different, and it gives me a unique sort of way to empathize and to connect.
What do you wish you knew sooner, or what would you tell your younger self?
I think one of the things that I wish I knew sooner was that medication is not as scary as I thought it was, and that it's a process. Like I remember being real frustrated early on. It felt like a stab in the dark every time we change a medication. But it's a process that can also be really worthwhile. And so for me, it made a huge difference. And therapy, therapy helped, and medication kind of gave me some more clarity to kind of apply the tools that I was learning in therapy. Medication gave me the I don't know, the discipline or the know-how to kind of see more clearly, and it's helped me recover and stay more stable, and it's kind of minimize some of those extremes in mood and stuff.
What do you wish people knew or understood about mental illness?
I think I wish people knew, people with mental illness and, and anything really, disability, physical or otherwise. They're also still just people, and they have good and they have bad, and they can be successful, they can be happy, they can have good and bad days, but they deserve to be loved, and to be hopeful, and to be, like I feel like we should just root for everyone. We're all on the same team, and so root for them, whether that's sort of celebrating their successes or mourning with them in those lower, harder moments. I think it's kind of like I wish they would maybe be more empathetic and understanding and patient and just loving. And I think it's easy to be accepting from a distance, but it's also a challenge to be accepting like up close, I guess. And so I think, people say, oh, I support you, I want, treatment, whatever, but then sometimes progress doesn't get made, or they treat you differently, or they expect something from you that you can't deliver on, and they hold you to a standard that is unreasonable for like that current state of mind that you're in. And so I think just to be patient and loving.
If you could go back, would you change anything?
I don't think I would change anything. I feel like, I was in survival mode for a long time, but I also did the best that I could, and I made it, Like I thought for a while, I was like, oh, I didn't really do well in college, but I also survived it, and I learned a lot of things. And so, in the last 10 years, it's the same. It's like, I maybe didn't do it as gracefully as I could have, knowing what I know now, but also I did it, And so, like I made it a little bit, so.
Any notable accomplishments or things you're proud of?
I feel like I've accomplished so much. I feel like a lot of the projects and the passions that I've had are sort of all coming to a head, and I think there's so many things that I'm so excited about, or so proud of myself for finally getting there. We moved to Utah several years ago, and I was able to do a service mission. That was something that I always wanted to do, and this past year I finished the first draft of a full-length novel, which is something that I've wanted to do since I was in college, and something that I have never had like the discipline and the consistency to be able to do. I bought a house. That's pretty exciting. I feel like I got in at a good time, got lucky. Yeah, top of the bucket list. Number one life goal was to get married in the temple. I was able to do that, and so I got married this past year. It's been very fulfilling and exciting and challenging and loving, and I just feel like I finally am at a point where I could sort of be the person that they need and that they can kind of help me in that way.
Where do you think it goes from here?
I mean, I imagine, for the last 10 years, I've just been learning and growing, and, every part of the journey has been, hard but fulfilling and challenging. And I feel like I sort of continually get like little pieces of the puzzle. And so, for example, last year I was diagnosed with ADHD. And then looking back, that connects a lot of dots for me, that explains a lot of things. And so it's given me some clarity and some understanding. And so I feel like, from here on, where it goes from here is that I'll just keep doing that, keep learning and growing, sort of finding pieces of the puzzle along the journey, and hopefully being able to enjoy the ride. And I think I hope that I continue to accomplish these projects. I always tell people like my superpower is starting projects and my kryptonite is finishing them. And then now I feel like it's finally all starting to come together, and I'm starting to finish some of these projects, and I'm excited. I'm working on another draft of the novel that I finished, and so there's a lot of things that I'm making progress on. I've been working on like woodworking and other passions and different things like this, and yeah, it's been really good. But yeah, I've been trying to get my house in order for my wife and I. It's been very good.
Do you feel like bipolar is over?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think it's over. I feel like even now, this is the last year has been the most stable I've ever been in the last decade of having that diagnosis, and I do feel like it's more under control. I feel like I'm more able to kind of not necessarily predict, but control or manage maybe like when those highs and lows are coming. I can kind of like deal with them a little better. I feel like I have some tools, and with the medication, and I feel like with like the support system that I've built up, or the different like things that I do to try and okay, I'm having one of those higher or lower periods. Now, what are some things I can do to kind of mitigate those, or kind of deal with those and live with those things? And it's been it's been a process, but I feel like I'm getting there, I guess is the point.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I feel like this is just the beginning. I feel like I don't think it's over. I think it's this is the start of it, and I'm excited for where it leads and where it goes. And yeah.
Anything else you'd like to say?
I'm overall I'm optimistic, and I'm excited, and I just feel like be relentlessly hopeful, because it makes life a little bit more exciting, and it also pisses off the haters. So. Bipolar is going to be here for a while, but hopefully so will I. Thanks for listening.